civilization fell in 332 BC with the advent of Alexander of Macedonia conquering Kemet and turning Kemet into Egypt. Egypt is a
Greek word.
Pyramid is
Egypt
Greek.
is a Greek
This
word.
is Greek. So most of the names of African places and things and people have been changed by non-African people. So if you don't know the original names, you'll never be able to understand the history, the culture, the science, the philosophy, and the concepts as they were originally created. Let me give you one example of that. Pyramid is a Greek word, which means little flat cake, like a pancake. The original word for that structure is mir, M-I-R.
Right.
And the word mir means the place of ascension. So mir, there are no bodies buried in any pyramids of mir in the entire Nile Valley. None, zero. So anytime anybody tells you that the pyramids were tombs, that is a lie, whether it's an intentional lie or unintentional lie based on ignorance. Mir were always built over tombs. The tombs were underground. So the word mir means the place of ascension. The place of ascension. And the purpose of a mir was to facilitate the ascension of the soul buried underneath it into heaven, where that soul would be reborn. And they were very specific about where in heaven a soul would go to be reborn. So the first text which documented this journey of the soul into the afterlife was carved in the burial chamber of a tomb known as the Pyramid of Unas, right? So it's in his burial chamber where you find the oldest written religious documents in the world were inscribed on the walls of this particular tomb that talks about the soul, that talks about the process for the salvation of the soul, that talks about the judgment of the soul, and the place where souls go to be reborn. So the framework for Western religions can be found in the Nile Valley. So it's important to reclaim the names. It's important to understand chronology and history. So in that context, Alexander of Macedonia conquered Kemet in 332 BC, and the word Egypt derived from the name Hekaptah, which is the temple of the spirit of Ptah in the city of Mennefer, which was later renamed Memphis by the Greeks. And so that word Hekaptah became Aigyptos, which was Latinized and became Egypt. That's how that word devolved, not evolved, it devolved because it lost its essence through the evolution of the word. And so once Alexander conquered Kemet, then he became so enamored by the 3,000 years of historical knowledge that he had inherited by virtue of conquest. And so he no longer referred to himself as Alexander, son of Philip of Macedonia. He called himself Alexander, son of Ammon, son of Amen, the unseen presence of God Almighty, which is a upper Nile Valley concept, right? And so the Greek rulers then descended from Alexander's line. And Cleopatra is the last of these Greek rulers. So Cleopatra, for all intents and purposes, Cleopatra was not African. She was not Kemetic in the literal sense of the word. And so my thing is, don't get caught up in Cleopatra. There are other personalities of more historical and cultural significance who we should be focusing our attention on. So I would bypass Cleopatra discussion and focus on Queen Tiye, who was one of the baddest queens in human history. She was one of the most powerful rulers on earth. She was the wife of Imhotep III, and their statue in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo is the largest statue in that building. And anyone who looks upon that statue could see the nationality or the race, if you will, of who these two African people were. And it's very clear that we understand the chronology. Queen Tiye was the wife of Amenhotep III. The son was Amenhotep IV, who changed his name to Akhenaten. And Akhenaten's son was the person that we call King Tut. So if you understand the history, understand the chronology, you can focus your attention on subject matters that are more worthy of discussion than Cleopatra. Not to dismiss her summarily, but Cleopatra is about as significant as Meghan Markle. I'm just saying.
Right.
Context is everything. Context is everything. So look at, and there, thank you for that image of Queen Tiye. Now, that's a very small image of Queen T. And what I would also suggest those of your listeners who live in New York, go to the Metropolitan Museum, the Met Museum, and you'll see an image of Queen T in the Met Museum. But that image of Queen T has half of her face destroyed. And there was an article that was written in the 1970s that was an attack against African-centered scholars. And Asa Hillier brought this knowledge to our attention. The people from the New York Times had interviewed him as part of this same debate that folk are having right now about Cleopatra and African history. And Asa Hillier showed this image of Queen T. And this image of Queen T, I love it so much because it reminds me so much of my dear friend, Dr. Francis Chris Wilson, with the afro, the stern look, and a woman who was clearly in control of herself and her destiny. So Asa referenced that face of Queen T in the Metropolitan Museum with half the face knocked off. So they had an opportunity, the New York Times had an opportunity to tell the truth, but they chose not to.
Right.
And so these are the games that we're playing with, and we have to, be very careful about who we get our information from. We should read everything, but read everything with a critical eye so that you can discern when someone is being deceptive. You can discern when you're being immersed into aspects of the truth so that you can ground yourself on the truth and not be led astray by arguments or false narratives that is designed to neutralize your strength, your power, and to waste time.
Yes.
We really don't have any time to waste.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of time, I know you have to run, so I want you to let people know about, you told me Egypt on the Potomac Tour is going to start back up. Give people the website, and then family watching. As soon as we finish with Tony, I'll let you know about my online history classes I teach on Saturdays and Sundays, because we have a class today at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Go ahead, Tony.
So through our company, IKG, we have been presenting this information for over 40 years. We've done numerous publications. We have numerous activities. One of our most significant activities is our Egypt on the Potomac field trip, which is something that I created in 1986. So Egypt on the Potomac is designed to show people the Egyptian presence, the Kemetic presence in Washington, D.C.
Right.
And I've done research. We've been doing this for well over 30 years, and no one has ever challenged me based on the information that we put forward to show that America's founding fathers chose examples from the Nile Valley, from Kush and Kemet, in order to establish the foundation for what has become the capital of the wealthiest, most powerful nation in human history. So that activity has been curtailed for the past 3 years because of COVID. But beginning on May the 6th, we will have our regular 3-hour bus field trip of Washington, D.C., where we will take you through various locations throughout the city, and explain the architectural, the symbolic, and the mythological elements of Nile Valley civilization, which have literally been hidden in plain sight. We connect the dots, and we empower people with the ability to see their history and use that history to transform their consciousness. So anyone can go to our website, ikg-info.com. We also have another project that we're going to be unveiling at the Thurgood Marshall Center, where we're based in D.C. It's the John Henry Clark Enhanced History Project. This project, we have 400 square feet of wall space where we're going to be using information inspired by the work of John Henry Clark to tell the story of people who've been written out of the respectable commentary of human history. And this project is my response to certain historical shortcomings in the National Museum of African American History and Culture, which is a phenomenal structure. The only issue that I have with it is that it begins our history in the basement, and it begins our history with slavery.
Right.
It doesn't talk about who we were prior to our enslavement.
Exactly.
So the cornerstone of the John Henry Clark Enhanced History Project is a 25-foot long mural, which illustrates 8,000 years of African excellence and success, an undeniable 8,000 years of African excellence and success, which was undermined by the Ma'afa, the European and Arab enslavement of African people. But we have come through the Ma'afa. We have survived.
Yes.
And through the work that you're doing, through the work that others are doing, we are doing our best to bring forbidden knowledge into the community that needs the knowledge the most, so that they can transform their consciousness and create a world that is worthy of their children and their children's children's inheriting, based on accessing ancestral knowledge and recreating the genius that we were born with. So that's the process, man. And let me just, in closing, let me just share that my good colleague, Charles French, has a new book coming out next month. It's 10,000 years of Nile Valley history.
Okay.
10,000 of Nile Valley history. So I'm really pleased to see that there's more scholars, more sisters and brothers who are doing the work and documenting a history that has been suppressed for so long. And all we have to do is read and study and create spaces within our home. Every home should have a library.
Correct.
Right? The parents in those homes should spend time reading with your children and having intelligent discussions about how to articulate that history. Everybody pays taxes, and our tax dollars are being used in schools to miseducate many children, black, brown, white, children in the classroom.
Right.
So we have an obligation as taxpayers to see to it that certain information is accessible in the classroom. And if it's not going to be taught in the classroom, we need to demand of our churches, our fraternities, our sororities, our barbershops and beauty shops to turn those spaces into spaces where we can teach our children and their parents and elders in the community who they are.
Correct.
So we can transform our consciousness.
But my I teach a 10-week online history course that just started up, and we have class number 4 coming up Sunday, March 3rd, 2024, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's called Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Okay, I deal with thousands of years of history, what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. You've never seen anything like this before. Now, normally we do this on Saturdays, but like I said, on Saturday, March 2nd, I am doing a presentation for the Detroit Reparations Task Force, and it's the same time that class is. So I have to. We're going to do the class on Sunday. Okay, Sunday 2 p.m. You can register for it. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded, and you can go back and watch them over and over again. Even after the course is over with, you can go back and watch it. Okay, I'm gonna put the new flyer up there. This is the flyer for our Sunday, February 25th class. As soon as you register, you can go watch that class. My lesson plan here is here for all 10 classes. So we deal with there's over 200 slides that I created. I've been teaching this class on and off since 2017. I created the curriculum for this class, and I selected the articles as well. There's 80 to 100 articles that we look at here in the class. There are about 15 books that we reference. I show you excerpts of the book on the screen. You don't have to buy any of the books to follow along in class. We look at excerpts. We also look at excerpts of interviews I've done with some of our historians, some of our scholars, Professor James Small, Professor Kabahai Watha Khamenei, Anthony Browder, Runoko Rashidi, etc. Okay, but here, this is my lesson plan, and you can download this lesson plan. Okay, so you can follow along with us in class. I'm going to update the lesson. I've made a few slight changes to the lesson plan to add some information, so we'll update that. But in class, in our next class, we're going to look at, we just looked at Sunday, we just looked at Tanis Heraklion, the lost Egyptian city of Tanis Heraklion that sunk into the sea about 1,200 years ago. This was a city built around 8th century BC, okay, or BCE, before the Common Era. We talked about stone tools found on the Greek island of Crete that date back 130,000 years ago. So in this portion of the class, we're looking at archaeological discoveries that have come out in the last 10 to 15 years or 20 years or so, over about a 20-year period of time, that are causing the scientists and archaeologists to push the timelines back. We'll talk about the 17 pyramids that were found buried underneath Egypt around 2011. In the next class, we're going to get into understanding cooperative economics, which are principles we brought with us from Africa. In each class, we build a foundation to get deeper into it. We talked about the Khoisan, who have the oldest DNA on the planet, and date back about at least 100,000 years ago. They're the short-statured Africans who go all around the world. And the Khoisan were here as well, because we looked at information coming from Dr. David Imhotep's book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. Okay, so you can go through and look at the type of content that we cover here in this class. You've probably never seen anything like this before this class. It's on sale, $80, regularly $130. You can use this information with your children. Also, I would say the content is PG-13, but this class is going to blow you away. This is my life's work. It took about 7 years to get the class really developed to this point, okay? So as soon as you register, you start watching the content. So please support us in what we do, because it takes a lot to finance the African History Network, pay for all these services, pay for Restream. I teach the class on 2 digital platforms, 2 online digital platforms. I have to pay them each month as well. But when you see the content in this class and how much you learn in here, it's going to blow you away. And then it was either the first, we did an introduction to the class on February 3rd. And then on our February 10th class, we dealt with some of the history of Black History Month as well. Okay, we dealt with some of the history of Black History Month. Okay, so, and what I'm going to do is, for the sake of time, okay, how you all like this type of information? Give us a thumbs up, give us a heart, give us a like on the broadcast. Also, at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, we have the information for Cash App and PayPal. Okay. And I had to create this graphic here because people have set up fake African History Network Cash App accounts, and they've been stealing money from us. So it has information here about our radio show or our broadcast Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And let's see here. This is another class that I teach that's going to start up in June. It's called Black Resistance Movements from the Haitian Revolution, U.S. Civil War, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power Movement, 1800 to 1968. That's going to start up the first weekend in June. But here's our PayPal and Cash App information here. Our Cash App account is $ the AHN show, SHOW. When you go to it, it says Michael and shows my picture there. You click right here on the link. It shows our QR code. These other ones here are fake African History Network Cash App accounts, and there's about 5 fake ones out there that I'm trying to get shut down. You click here for PayPal. It takes you to our